Hey beautiful! Today you along with Queen Zani will discuss best Luuk build. Starting off with kit explanation. At his core, Luuk Herssen is meant to play him in short bursts or quick swaps. His entire kit is built around staying on the field. The thing that quietly controls Luuk's whole kit is Ichor Flow. This is his personal resource bar, and almost everything he does feeds into it. Normal attacks, mid-air attacks, dodge counters, resonance skills, even his intro all restore Ichor Flow on hit. You don't really think about it moment to moment, you just fight. But once that bar fills up, Luuk automatically enters a special state called Aureate Judge. That's the game telling you, you've built enough momentum, time to cash out. Before we get there, it helps to understand how Luuk actually attacks. On the ground, his basic attacks are straightforward, a 4-hit SPECTRO combo. It's functional, but it's not where he shines. The real identity of Luuk comes from the air. His heavy attack launches him upward, and once he's airborne, he can stay there far longer than most characters. His mid-air attacks form their own combo string, and crucially, that string doesn't reset easily. You're encouraged to stay airborne, weave attacks together, dodge in the air, flash back to enemies, and keep pressure on them without touching the ground. As you attack, his resonance skill starts as Golden Reflux, a quick dash that pulls him toward enemies, and applies Tune Strain. This skill is less about damage and more about positioning and setup. It keeps Luuk glued to targets and ensures enemies are marked for later interactions. Once you reach certain points in your attack flow, like finishing specific basic or mid-air attacks, Golden Reflux gets replaced by Aureole of Execution, which is the centerpiece of his kit. Aureole of Execution isn't one skill. It's a rotating sequence of 3. The first version is a multi-hit slash that resets your aerial combo and opens a short window for a powerful follow-up attack. The second version is a spinning dash that cuts through enemies and throws an Ichor blade, again letting you extend your offense. The third version is the heavy hitter. Luuk throws out solidified Ichor that lands on the ground and becomes an Ichor deposit, a delayed explosion waiting to happen. You don't choose which version you get. Each cast advances the sequence automatically. Once you've used that third version and the Ichor deposit is on the field, Luuk gets access to one of his most important moves, Gavel of Earthshaker. From the air, he slams straight down, detonating the deposit for massive SPECTRO damage and instantly restoring his stamina. All of this feeds back into Aureate Judge. When Ichor Flow is full and this state activates, Luuk's rules change slightly. His Aureole of Execution hits significantly harder, but every cast now consumes Ichor Flow instead of generating it. You're no longer building, you're spending. The goal during Aureate Judge is to push through as many boosted Aureole casts as possible, ideally ending with a fully empowered Gavel of Earthshaker. When the meter runs out, the state ends, and you naturally fall back into building mode again. On top of that loop sits his Resonance Liberation, rewritten in Winter's Margins. This is a large multi-hit SPECTRO attack that also counts as basic attack damage, which means it benefits from many of the same bonuses Luuk stacks naturally. Every time you cycle Aureole of Execution, you build a buff that increases this ultimate's damage. So Luuk's rotation naturally leads into it. There's also a background layer involving Tune Strain and Tune Break, but you don't need to micromanage it to understand Luuk. The simple version is that Luuk applies one form of Tune Strain, benefits heavily from enemies being in the interfered state, and gets stronger when his team helps trigger Tune Break effects. This makes him scale extremely well with coordinated teams, but even solo, his personal damage loop still functions cleanly. What all of this adds up to is a character who feels like he's always mid-combo. Luuk doesn't really have a downtime phase. Even his defensive tools, like air dodges, turn into offense. You're constantly moving forward, staying airborne, rotating skills, and watching for the moment when your meter fills and your damage spikes. When you look at Luuk Herssen, it's very easy to get baited into upgrading the wrong things, because on paper he looks like a basic attack DPS. In practice, that's not where his damage actually comes from. His damage comes from what his basic attacks unlock, not the basic attacks themselves. His Forte circuit is the single most important upgrade. Forte directly strengthens Aureate Judge, increases the damage multipliers of Aureole of Execution, and boosts Gavel of Earthshaker. Right after that comes his Resonance skill. This isn't because Golden Reflux itself hits especially hard, but because all 3 forms of Aureole of Execution scale from Resonance skill levels. Since Aureole is something you use constantly in every rotation, this upgrade massively improves his sustained damage and makes every combo hit harder. His Resonance Liberation comes next. Rewritten in Winter's margins can deal huge damage, especially when fully stacked, but it's still gated by energy and cooldown. Everything after that is secondary. Basic attack upgrades don't do much for Luuk, even though many of his attacks are labeled as basic attack damage. Intro skill is the least important, since it's mostly utility and setup rather than a real damage source. That's why his upgrade priority ends up being very straightforward. Forte circuit first, then Resonance skill, then Resonance Liberation, and only afterward basic attack. An intro if you have spare resources. And when you look at Luuk Herssen's Resonance chains, only a few of them actually matter for his personal damage. The rest are either team-oriented or quality-of-life upgrades. The first and most important pickup is RC1. This is Luuk's biggest early power spike and the best value chain overall. The massive midair damage bonus directly scales his entire aerial game, which is where most of his pressure and real damage comes from. It also improves Dawnlit Keep generation, making him much safer while staying on the field. The next truly important one is RC2. This chain is all about burst. It significantly boosts his Resonance Liberation and massively improves how his damage scales against enemies affected by Toon Strain interfered. The real breakpoint, though, is RC3. This is where Luuk's core loop gets supercharged. RC3 massively increases the damage of all Aureole of Execution forms and Gavel of Earthshaker during Aureate Judge. In other words, it buffs exactly the phase where Luuk is spending Ichor Flow for damage. It also makes his Toon Strain interactions far more consistent in team play. For most players, this is the best stopping point if you want Luuk to feel complete. Everything beyond that is luxury, except RC6, which is the full investment option. RC6 pushes all of his strongest tools even further, massively amplifying Aureole, Gavel, and his Resonance Liberation while making him self-sufficient at stacking Toon Strain. It's extremely strong, but only worth considering if you're committing fully. So in simple terms, best single upgrade is RC1, best overall stopping point is RC3, and RC6 is for max investment only. The next step is figuring out how to scale that power properly. This is where echo sets come in, and thankfully, for Luuk Herssen, there's really no debate about his best echo set. Rite of Gilded Revelation is his clear best in slot, and it lines up perfectly with how his damage works. Luuk's strongest damage sources, Aureole of Execution, Golden Impale, Gavel of Earthshaker, and even his Resonance Liberation, are all treated as basic attack damage, while also being SPECTRO. Rite of Gilded Revelation buffs both of these at the same time, which is exactly what he wants. The set gives him SPECTRO damage up front, then ramps further as he deals basic attack damage, which he does constantly during his normal rotation. By the time you cast your Resonance Liberation, you're getting a huge basic attack damage bonus, right when his burst hits. For the main echo, his best option is Twin Nova Nebulous Cannon. It gives both SPECTRO damage bonus and basic attack damage bonus passively, which again hits every important part of Luuk's kit. The active attack is solid on its own, but the real value is how cleanly the stats scale his core damage loop. If you're not ready to farm a full Rite of Gilded Revelation set yet, Celestial Light works well as a temporary alternative. A full 5-piece Celestial Light still gives a large SPECTRO damage bonus, which Luuk can fully utilize across all of his skills. It's weaker than Rite because it doesn't lean into basic attack damage as hard, but it's a perfectly usable stepping stone. In that case, running Celestial Light with Morning Ikes as your main echo is the standard fallback. And once you've locked in his echo set, the last piece of the puzzle is stat priority, which is thankfully very standard for Luuk. For main stats, your cost for echo should always be crit rate or crit damage, depending on what your overall ratio looks like. Luuk scales extremely well with crit, and since so much of his damage is concentrated into empowered windows, crit stats give very reliable returns. Both cost 3 echoes should prioritize SPECTRO damage bonus. This stat scales every meaningful part of Luuk's kit. For cost 1 echoes is the correct choice on both. When it comes to substats, crit is king. Crit damage and crit rate sit at the top of the priority list and should be your main focus when evaluating echo pieces. After that, attack is your next best stat, followed by basic attack damage bonus, which is still valuable since most of Luuk's damage is treated as basic attack damage, just not as impactful as crit or attack. Alright, moving on to weapons. And this is one of the clearest parts of building Luuk Herssen. Without a doubt, Daybreaker's spine is his best weapon, and it's very obvious that his kit was designed around it. The high base attack and crit rate already put it ahead, but the real value comes from the passive. Luuk constantly deals basic attack damage and repeatedly inflicts Tune Strain, shifting, which means he keeps full uptime on its effects almost effortlessly. The SPECTRO damage bonus, the basic attack damage amplification, and the defense ignore all stack directly onto the exact moments where Luuk does his real damage. If you don't have his signature, there are still solid alternatives. Pulsation Bracer is the best non-signature option. It offers a huge crit damage bonus and synergizes well with Luuk's Tune Strain playstyle. Since Luuk frequently attacks enemies affected by Tune Strain interfered, the stacking basic attack damage bonus is easy to maintain during combat. Another viable option is Abyss Surges. This weapon leans more toward comfort and consistency rather than raw damage. The energy regeneration helps smooth out Luuk's rotations, while the mutual buffs between basic attacks and resonant skills fit his constant back-and-forth playstyle. Alright, to wrap things up, let's talk about Ascension materials. To ascend Luuk himself, you'll mainly be farming Exo's Warm Pendants, which drop from echoes in Lehiroy. Alongside those, he requires Sun Converter's Reach from the world boss, as well as the new Edelschnee overworld material, also obtained from Lehiroy. These three make up the core of his character ascension, so expect to spend a good amount of time in that region if you plan to raise him properly. When it comes to upgrading his Forte, the material focus shifts slightly. You'll still need Exo's Warm Pendants, yes, more of them, but now you'll also be farming wave-worn shard materials from the Forgery Challenge. On top of that, his Forte upgrades require the new weekly boss drop gold and memory, which means consistent weekly clears are unavoidable if you want to fully max him out. And with that, you've got the full picture. From gameplay and build priorities to resonance chains, echoes, weapons, and materials, you now know exactly what you're signing up for when building Luuk. And hey, if you have watched till the end, you are in legend.